Good evening, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour pretty close to 5 years ago now, because people needed to stay connected by sort of telling each other stories around a virtual campfire. And it's been so nice. I've been coming back and warming my hands at this campfire for the past pretty much every Wednesday for the past almost 5 years. And the formula has stayed the same from very early on. We have two writers reading complete stories of their own work. And tonight's readers are Joe Miles and Anne E.G. Nydam. If you are here on Zoom, feel free to chime in on the text chat off there on the right. If you are joining us on Facebook, feel free to join in on the text chat, but please don't get mad at us if we don't talk to you right away, because we're all in the Zoom. We're not neglecting you on purpose, promise. And our first writer tonight is Anne E.G. Nydam. Anne E.G. Nydam has been creating imaginary worlds since she could hold a crayon, bringing them to life in both art and writing. And you've got to check out her website. I'll give you that link later. She has written and illustrated books for all ages, from nursery rhymes for preschoolers through high fantasy for adults. A former middle school art teacher with an undergraduate degree in linguistics and a wide-ranging curiosity, she makes relief block prints celebrating the wonders of worlds both real and imaginary, and writes books, short stories, and poems about adventure, creativity, and looking for the best in others. Learn more about her art and writing at nydamprints.com. Nydam is Nydam, so that's nydamprints.com, and you got to go check out the art because it really is cool. Welcome, Anne. Welcome to Story Hour.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited. And I guess I dive right in. So I will be reading two stories that come from my new collection of short stories, poetry, and art. It's called Bittersweetness and Light. It's actually releasing January 6th, 25, but I think it's available for pre-order. I don't understand some of that. So I'm reading two stories, and the first one, I will do a minor content warning. There's nothing graphic or explicit right in this story, but the narrator is grieving the murder of her daughter, so that is alluded to throughout the story. It's called A Life for a Life. I stand looking over the valley of the ancestors, where my people come when it is their time for death. Their bones are purified by the vultures and given back to the first matriarch. I am driven here by the memory of the bones that are not here, the mutilated body of my daughter, Feathergrass, slaughtered and left to lie. They say my people have long memories, and I will never forget those who murder my children. I am here for vengeance, but first I give my thanks to the vultures who sanctify bones wherever they lie, ensuring that Feathergrass too will join the ancestors. That is treasure that cannot be stolen, but I will avenge the rest. My tribe are gathered behind me, watching as I begin my incantation. I gather dust and scatter it over my head, across my shoulders, until my scarred flanks are gray as ash, and I smell 1,000 petrichors in the dry earth of my land. Heedless of thorns, I strip the acacia and lay its tiny leaves on my tongue, and I taste 1,000 greenings. I begin to dance, the stamping of my heavy feet sending my rhythm deep into the body of the earth, where it will be felt by the bones of the ancestors and by the deep roots of the acacias and the broad woven roots of the grasses and by other tribes on other distant journeys. And without being discerned by the duller senses of those who slaughter my children, yet it will be felt by the one I am calling, one of their daughters. I will summon her to me here to avenge the death of Feathergrass, a life for a life, a child for a child. I dance, stamping and swaying, invoking the strength of earth. I feel it rising in me like rock and bone. I invoke the protection of rain and feel it spreading over my shoulders like a cloak of leaf and thorn. I invoke the connection of wind, in whose image my tribe sweeps across the savanna, shaking the trees that bind earth and sky. I invoke the fury of sun, whose love burns hot enough to sear the very life it calls forth. I dance for strength, for protection, for connection, for fury. I dance for vengeance. She is here, looking over the valley of the ancestors. She is small, a young child. Her people and mine have this in common. We are people of children, neither leaving our offspring to find their way alone, like the snakes, nor giving them only a single season to learn to run, as the gazelles do. Rather, we teach our children, step by step, year by year, reign by reign, and they learn to be as their mothers are. When we are strong, our children are strong. When we are patient, our children are patient. When we know the ways of green grass and hidden water, our children know these ways. And when we are cruel, our children are cruel. Seeing the child standing there, I see her people, the people who murdered my daughter. My fury swells and I stamp harder, shaking the earth, conjuring it to shake in reply. The rhythm of my magic shudders through the dry soil, each stone shaking its neighbor until the waves of it spread out from my feet and the insects grow silent and wary in the dirt, feeling the wave of power swelling deep below. The waves pulse outward, growing in strength and anger. When they reach the child, they will break the earth apart and it will devour her, a death for a death. So why do I suddenly rush ahead of the earthquake and sweep the child up from the earth just before the broken ground can swallow her down? I have lifted her without forethought, and for a moment I cannot explain my own action. Then I consider that it is not enough for this girl simply to disappear. Her parents must weep over her corpse as I wept over Feathergrass. I set the child down on the ground and she stays there. If she is afraid of me, she is more afraid of the earthquake. I close my eyes and summon more rage and more magic. I draw a wavy line in the dust, as long as the child is tall, which is barely above my knee. I pluck a long hair from my tail and lay it in the channel I've drawn. Very carefully, I break a stick from the thorny bush with the deadly milk, and I lay that at the front of the hair where its poison oozes into the channel. All I need now is water, and I have tears enough. They fall into the line I have drawn and wet the hair and bind it all into one latent curse. And then I dance again. This time I stamp not to shake the earth, but to kindle the heartbeat of the adder. The hair wriggles in the dusty channel and begins to grow. It swells and stretches until it fills its wavy line and its eyes open and its mouth opens and the thorns have become fangs. Its tongue flicks, feeling for the scent, reaching for the heartbeat of the child who stands watching me. When the adder slips toward her, she takes a step back, but too late. Already the snake is drawing itself together to strike, and suddenly my dancing foot comes down and crushes the wedge-shaped head. I know my tribe are wondering, as I myself am wondering, what I have done. Why have I spared the child's life again? The eyes of my people are behind me, and the child's eyes are before me, staring up at me, as curious and intelligent as my own daughters were. Life needs death. Therefore, death should be for need. My rage shakes within me because Feathergrass's death was needless, because this child's tribe killed for greed. but I find that for all my anger, for all my grief, I cannot do the same. The death of this child brings no life to me or to my people, and we are not like her people. I will not become like her people. I turn away, and my eyes skim across the valley of the ancestors and come to rest on my own tribe, who have followed me here because they trust me. I have taught them everything. And I remember that the child's people and mine still have this in common. We are people of children. We teach our children step by step, year by year, rain by rain, and they learn to be as their mothers are. But have I not learned from Feathergrass and from my other daughters and from their children and their children's children? And might her people too learn from their children? When we are cruel, our children are cruel. But perhaps when our children are wise, we too can learn wisdom. When I see the child standing there, I see her people, the people who murdered my daughter, but I see also the curious child who could be one of my own tribe, one who could teach her own people to become more like her. I gather my magic around me again and feel my way back into the powers I know. I gather the dust and scatter it over the child's head, invoking the strength of the earth. I gather acacia leaves and lay them on her shoulders, invoking the protection of the rain. I invoke the connection of the wind. I invoke the love of the sun. Then I lift the child and set her on my shoulders and begin the walk back to the territory of her tribe, back to the place where Feathergrass's body lies. When we reach the mutilated corpse of my daughter, I stop and let myself feel the rage again and the grief and the needlessness of this death. I fling dust across Feathergrass's remains and scatter leaves and weep. And the child on my back touches the dust on her head and the leaves clinging to her shirt and the tears on my face. She leans low on my back to squeeze my shoulders, and I know my magic has reached her heart. We walk on. I raise my trunk and scent the child's people, their territory. I lift her down from my shoulder and set her on her feet. The child has not spoken in all this time, but she lays her hand on my trunk and holds it there for a moment, just as my own children might do with their trunks. Gently, I touch her forehead. I am telling her to go and to be well and to teach her people that my people are more than the price of our ivory tusks. I am touching also Feathergrass one last time. I am telling her to go and to be well and to return to the first matriarch. I have put all my strength into this magic, invoked all the power I know, and done all that I can do. I return now to my own people and wait to learn what this child will do. There's the illustration at the end.
Yes, I knew it was an elephant. At the very beginning, I was like, lion? Because I don't know, the new Lion King movie maybe has this in my head or something, but so it went on and I was hearing the ground shaking and it seemed so agile in some ways, so dexterous. And I just looked this up while I was testing my theory, folks, and did something very smart here. Only African elephants, only in African elephants do the males and females both have the ivory tusks. Asian female elephants don't. So nice research.
Got that right. Yeah. All right. So my second story is very different indeed. Because I will say about this book that it's all different sort of styles and flavors and subgenres of speculative fiction. The theme that they have in common is more high level, and it's just about finding reasons for hope and sharing joy and looking for the bright spots, which I think we will all be needing more than ever in the coming years. So this one is called Love Potion. Ziblick's Cosmic Emporium stood for as long as anyone could remember at the corner of Elm Street and Hillside. The proprietor was an old one, made of tentacles and slime, who bubbled cheerfully at all his customers and loved nothing better than a good gossip when anyone came in to buy a box of interdimensional nails or a packet of Eldritch biscuits. Abby Dimmock took this into consideration when deciding the best time to purchase a love potion. She knew Ziblick would chat if she came when the emporium was empty, and she was in no mood to chat with anyone about the sorry state of her love life. On the other hand, this still seemed preferable to asking for a love potion in front of half her fellow townsfolk on a busy Saturday afternoon. She winced as the cracked iron bell in the doorway clanged, announcing her entrance. So much for subtlety. At least the sparkling and warbling of the ineffable feather squids in the corner always made her smile. "Ah, dear Lady Dimmock," Ziblick greeted her brightly from the high counter of polished mahogany in front of the shelves of dusty bottles, lead-sealed urns, and other dark and mysterious items. I have an illustration of him, too. There he is. The air sac inside his semi-transparent greenish body swelled and pulsed as he spoke, amplifying his voice to a tone suitable for dark proclamations. "What service may be rendered unto you on this fateful day?" "I'm looking for a love potion, please," she mumbled. "What's that? A potion of inexorable love?" the old one bellowed, making Abby profoundly grateful that she was indeed the only customer in the shop at the moment. "Surely you need not such uncanny power to sway the heart of man." Abby thought wistfully of Charlie Godwin, the new math teacher at the high school, who seemed so sane and sweet and funny and so very diffident. The chances that he would approach her or that she could engineer a better acquaintanceship with him seemed dismal. These dispiriting reflections made her a little blunter than usual. "Listen, Ziblick, I'm 42 years old. It's been years since my last real date. I don't like bars or the men who hang out in them, and the thought of being swiped over endlessly by potential internet stalkers does not appeal. Now I've finally met a man I like, and I do not want to waste this opportunity, so I would like a love potion, if you please." The old one oozed forward confidentially and lowered his booming voice to a fainter rumble. "Pray tell, what man is this of whom you speak?" "I'm not sure that's any of your business," Abby returned tartly. "Everyone knows you're the world's worst gossip." A fountain of bubbles rippled up inside Ziblick. "Verily you speak sooth, Lady Dimmock," he chuckled. "Guilty as charged. Yet I have known you many years, and my only desire is to witness your happiness for such brief span as your mortal life may encompass." A sympathetic tentacle writhed toward Abby, and the deep voice grew more plangent. "For many long millennia have I observed the love affairs of mortals, and I judge not that this unnatural elixir will bring you true happiness." Abby scowled. "I thought you were a salesman, not a life coach. Please just sell me the love potion." A disapproving gurgle shook Ziblick's gelatinous slime. "I should be loath to see you destroy your peace with such a baleful brew. Consider well whether you could truly be content, ever fearing that the love you were given was yours only by compulsion. Surely true happiness can come only with the love of free hearts freely bestowed." "So why do you even sell love potions if you think they're so baleful?" "Alas, even such as I are not mighty enough to withstand the insidious force of expectation. Who would respect a cosmic emporium that trafficked not in arcane tinctures, cryptic tomes, dark talismans, and otherworldly relics?" He waved a dripping tentacle at the rows of shelving around him. "Marketing, dear lady, marketing. But I repeat that surely you need not such uncanny power to sway the heart of man." Abby sighed. "All right, Mr. Dark Lord of all advice. What do you think I should do instead? Because I want to get this right for once. A phosphorescent glimmer twinkled across the expanse that would be Ziblik's face if old ones made of tentacles and slime had faces. Disclose unto me, dear Lady Dimmock, what it is of all that may be found in this whole wondrous cosmic emporium that would make your heart truly gladdest. Oh, so now you're a salesman. But at the old one's earnest and meaningful look, Abby tried to give his request the serious consideration he clearly sought. I don't know, you have a lot of wondrous stuff. The tenebrous hand lotion is very soothing, and your Camarian peanut butter is honestly the best I've ever tasted. She let her eyes travel around the dark, crowded interior, thinking about all the strange and fascinating items that lurked here in the shadows, tempting her through the years. Scrolls of knowledge to teach arcane skills, cloaks of power to grant invisibility or armor plating or eternal warmth, works of intricate craft imported from far planes of existence. And then she smiled. I guess I've always wanted an ineffable feather squid if I weren't afraid it would be too hard to care for properly. Ziblik nodded, and his air sacs swelled and thrummed as his voice rang out sonorously. I proclaim to you now, Abigail Dimmock, with all the oracular authority of my chthonic soul, that if an ineffable feather squid is what you desire, then verily an ineffable feather squid you should acquire. He added slightly less portentously. In truth, it is not such a difficult domestic pet to satisfy. Simply mist it regularly, expose it to plenty of fresh moonlight, and socialize it with adequate affection from an early age to cultivate its sweet temper and avoid tantrums. And they do enjoy that Camarian peanut butter for a treat. Abby laughed and shrugged. Honestly, Ziblik, I don't know why you think this is the answer, but why not? If you won't sell me a love potion, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. And if I'm going to be alone, I may as well have an ineffable feather squid to keep me company. 12 minutes later, she was walking out of Ziblik's cosmic emporium, carrying a hollow crystal sphere about the size of a basketball, peering at the glowing turquoise fluff ball within, making kissy faces and crooning, "Oh, you precious little monster." Here's the ineffable feather squid. It was because of this excessive attention to her new little friend that she nearly tripped over the feet of a man sitting on the bench outside. It was Charlie Godwin, and she blushed furiously at the recollection that she had been planning to slip him a love potion. Then she noticed that he too was holding a crystal sphere, and inside was a sparkling orange fluff ball. "Morning, Abby," he said with a shy smile. "Looks like Ziblik's doing a good business in ineffable feather squids today." "Did you just buy yours?" "Yeah, he talked me into it after I came in looking for something else." He suddenly blushed. "Same with me. Maybe he's trying to get rid of excess inventory." Abby and Charlie watched the ineffable feather squids for a few minutes. They had come to the near sides of their two spheres so that they could gaze at each other through the crystal. They chittered eagerly, while luminescent waves of color flickered over their whiskers, and their long plumed tentacles fizzed like sparklers. Abby looked up, and her eyes met Charlie's. She blurted, "Ziblik said they like Camarian peanut butter. Want to come over to my place and give them some? Give them some treats?" Charlie smiled. "Yes," he said. "I'd like that very much." And that is the end of that.
That's so sweet. But also peculiar enough that it wasn't too sweet. You know what I mean?
I like cute, but not cutesy, right?
Exactly. Yes, the peculiarity adds that piquancy. Is that how you say it? Yes, that certain savor. Plus, you get to say ineffable a lot when you read that one, so that's pretty cool.
Which is sometimes difficult, but I do my best.
I thought you handled it quite ably. Well, everyone, at Story Hour, it is our way to, between the two readers, just take a moment to let the first stories sink in or dissipate into the ether or however they work their magic, and be ready for the next. So we can be ready for the next one. And I like to take a breath to do. Everyone, that was N.E.G. Nydam. And our next reader tonight is Joe Miles. Joe Miles writes optimistic science fiction and fantasy, including the Gifted of Brennick space opera trilogy, beginning with Warped State. Their short stories have appeared in magazines including Fantasy and Science Fiction, Uncanny, Lightspeed, and more. Fueled by tea and sunshine, which honestly is pretty much their personality, they spend their time dreaming up strange new worlds and serving the whims of their two cats. They live in Maryland. Find a complete list of Joe's books and short stories at joemiles.com. Joe, welcome back.
Thank you, Laura. I'm excited to be back.
Us too. So what did you bring for us tonight?
Tonight, I'm going to be reading my most seasonal story, Santa Knows, which was published in Fantasy and Science Fiction in 2022. I am glad that Anne switched over to our more fun tone, because I think that will lead into this nicely. I was a little worried about following the
Do we even need any content warnings for the Santa story?
I don't think so. It is very Santa-y. All right.
Excellent.
I'm going to dive right in. Dear Santa, I feel ridiculous writing this. Like, of course I know you don't exist. But my little sister Devin, she's 5 and still believes in you, and she's really upset, so I promised I'd write you a letter for her. Here goes. You've got to do something about this Santa Knows app, Devin says. She's so scared she'll end up on your naughty list. She can't sleep at night in case she accidentally does something bad in her dreams and the Santa cam catches it, even though her naughty score is really good. She says it's a conspiracy. She's proud of learning that word, and that something must be wrong if Santa's scaring kids like this. Honestly, I think it's pretty gross that Santa Knows is using your name this way, real or not. This semester at school, they made us all install the app on our phones. It tells on us if we skip class, and it's supposed to know if we're cheating on tests. I got naughty points for meeting my friend Stacy in the hallway to loan her my algebra book when she forgot hers. They don't even trust us to go to the bathroom anymore. I wish you were real and could get this letter. I bet you'd be seriously pissed off. Sincerely, Katrin. Santa Nick read the letter 3 times before putting it in the pile with the others. All of the Santas shared the task of reading the mail, but Santa Nick liked to take the first look at each new sack of letters that came in. And in this batch, Santa Knows was all the kids were talking about. Some defending why they had lost points, some bargaining for better presents based on their score, others genuinely distraught that Santa might think they were naughty. And then there were the cynical ones, like Katrin, desperate enough to reach out even though they didn't believe in Santa. Mail took a while to get to the North Pole. How long had this been going on? Running a quick internet search on his tablet, his face flushed red behind his beard as he discovered that this company, Santa Knows, is everywhere. Apparently, they'd started out making spy cams hidden in toys, but became known for their excellent, or horrific from Nick's point of view, algorithm for monitoring children's behavior. Then a tech giant acquired them, and suddenly the Santa Knows algorithm was hooked up to nearly every type of child surveillance. Apps assigned naughty points for visiting disapproved websites or playing too many games. Cameras and sleep monitors no longer merely kept young children safe, but punished older children for reading after bedtime. Bracelets even tracked physical activities, and Katrin's school wasn't the only place monitoring students' every move. Santas weren't supposed to swear, but at that moment, Santa Nick came close. He picked up the toy megaphone that tied into their workshop speaker system. All Santas, report to the wrapping room. We've got a problem. They passed the letters around the long table in the wrapping room. It wasn't the biggest room in the toy factory, but it was the coziest, and it had enough seating for everyone. 15 Santas and 30 elves who hadn't reached full Santa status yet. Santa Nick played one of the ads from that company. By unspoken consensus, none of them wanted to speak its name, on the projector, its light bouncing off the rolls of wrapping paper that lined the walls. "That's pure evil," muttered Santa Doug. His dark brown hands tightened on the letter he held, crinkling the paper. Not jolly at all. "They're destroying those kids' innocence and doing it in our name." "It's just like that stupid song. I hate that song," said Santa Janet. "Since when have we cared if kids have been bad or if they've been good, or if they're awake when they should be sleeping? How much bad can a kid get up to?" "Apparently any bad behavior is too much, according to that company," Santa Nick said grimly. "The question is, how do we make them stop?" "Sue them for defamation. Make it a big media event, so everyone will know we're not involved," suggested Santa Pablo, who had spent the most time among humans, and was the only one of them of any gender who opted not to grow a beard or wear a fake. That idea started a flurry of debate up and down the table, Santas and elves talking over each other. But Santa Nick hadn't earned the role of head Santa without learning how to wrangle this lovely, often argumentative group of people whose main fault was caring too much. He cleared his throat. "Ho, ho, ho," good back to him from around the table. "Lawsuits aren't our way." "But we have to do something," wailed one of the elves, an emotional youngster, poor thing. "And we will, but we'll do it our way, Santa style." He smiled at them, eyes twinkling as the plan came together in his head. Head Santa was mostly an administrative title. His predecessor, Santa Christopher, used to joke that no ordinary office could produce so much paperwork. But sometimes even Santas needed support and reassurance, and it was up to the head Santa to rally them. "Elves, go prep the big sleigh. Christmas is coming, and we've got work to do." On their way to that company's corporate headquarters, the sleigh dropped off Santa Nick atop a mini mansion in one of the richest neighborhoods in Silicon Valley. There was no snow in California, but the night air had a pleasant chill that made him feel optimistic as he squeezed down one of the house's 3 chimneys. The place was garish, stuffed with so many expensive grown-up toys, TVs and fine artwork, a grand piano, endangered fish, that Santa Nick wondered if the man who lived here had ever appreciated a gift in his life. No wonder he had so little respect for the Santa name. He didn't bother keeping the noise down while he ransacked the cupboards searching for flour and sugar. The kitchen was too clean and poorly stocked. There was no butter. He'd have to improvise. It wasn't long before he heard footsteps behind him. "Mr. Grant Lawson," he said without turning around. 44 years old, former dream gift, remote control Army helicopter, now chief executive officer of a company with a rather rude name. "Who the hell are you? How did you get in here?" Santa Nick turned, raised his puffy white eyebrows expressively, and gestured to his red and white suit. "I should think that's obvious." The man growled, exasperated, and pulled a pistol from the pocket of his bathrobe. "Get out." Santa clicked his tongue in disappointment. "Put that toy away and come sit down, Grant, while I finish making cookies. We have a lot to talk about." That company's headquarters had a large, flat roof, perfect to land the sleigh on, and though there was no proper chimney, they had plenty of options to get inside. The 6 remaining Santas left Elf Betty with the reindeer and slipped into a ventilation shaft, Santa Doug in the lead. That company shared the building with several other offshoots of its parent company, and the Santas had less information on office buildings in general than on family homes and apartments, so this might take a while. They split up to search for the right offices, starting with the highest levels and working their way down, slipping Santa quick past security cameras and keeping in touch with walkie-talkies. Everything was going perfectly until Santa Pablo tested the door to an executive office and tripped a motion sensor. Red lights flared throughout his section. Into his walkie-talkie, Santa Pablo said, "They know we're here. Get ready for company." "Don't you have any milk?" Santa Nick asked. The cookies were cooling on the marble counter, but the fridge was disappointingly empty. "At least for your kids?" "The kids are at boarding school, fortunately for you. If they were here, I'd have already called the police." He hadn't, though, and that was a hopeful sign. Grant had set down his gun and sat at the breakfast nook, still in his silk pajamas and bathrobe, but he didn't take any cookies. "No matter," Santa Nick helped himself. "Now, Grant," he said in his best Santa voice, "tell me, what is it that you want?" The Santa voice was magic, as much as the reindeers or squeezing down chimneys. At its best, it made children reveal what was in their hearts, not just gifts they wanted, but their deepest fears and hopes. Santas couldn't bring divorced parents back together or cure a sibling's cancer, but they were very good listeners, and sometimes that was the best gift of all. The voice worked less reliably on adults, depending on how deeply they'd once believed. "That remote control helicopter, of course, and a new bike, and a pony." "There's no need for sarcasm," Santa Nick said mildly. "I think you've guessed why I'm here. You're some privacy nutjob who broke into my house in the middle of the night, and you think dressing up as Santa will, what, trick me into feel guilty? Make me see the error of my greedy ways?" Grant rolled his eyes. "I'll give you this. Santa's suit was a smart touch. I can't shoot you or have you arrested like this, or it'll be all over the press. Bad optics." "How strategic of you. I hadn't thought of that. The suit is simply what I wear to work. But the reason I'm here, Grant, is to ask what you want so badly that you're willing to smear the good name of myself and my colleagues." Grant's phone rang. He checked the caller ID and answered. "What? I'm busy here." His gaze flashed toward Santa Nick. "More of them? Damn it. Get them contained, but keep them in the building. No police, no press. I'm on my way." "Going to the office?" Santa Nick asked. "Your friends are all over my headquarters, but I'm guessing you know that. What are you, the decoy? What am I supposed to do with you? I can't just let you go." "Nonsense," said Santa Nick. "I'm coming with you." When the alarm went off, Santa Janet had just found what she was looking for, the software engineering team for that company. There was no more point in being stealthy, so she slipped straight through the crack under the doors and into the expansive cubicles. She liked coders. Even the adults had a healthy appreciation for toys. She picked a cubicle with colorful action figures posed on the desk next to a foam dart gun. It only took a moment to unlock the computer. Passwords were like keyholes, no barrier to a Santa, and said through her walkie-talkie, "Folks, I'm in. Moving ahead with Operation Jolly." "Great, we'll try to draw security away from you," said Santa Doug. "Good luck." She caught a snatch of singing, one of the old classic carols in Doug's mellow baritone. There were tens of thousands of lines of code in the company library, but she worked Santa quick, faster even than on Christmas Eve, and soon found the database where user data was collected and matched to people's real-world identities, and the algorithms used to calculate their naughty scores. What an offensive name. She could edit that too. The software engineer whose desk she'd borrowed had a curved mirror stuck to the corner of the monitor, probably for defense against foam dart attacks. Movement caught her eye, blur of fur and legs in the mirror, and in the distance, distorted, a security guard. The guard, Ted, 24, basketball hoop, but really something else, a closely guarded secret, had already seen her, so she didn't bother hiding. She spun in her chair to meet the furry visitor, Rufus, 3, rope-tug toy, a good boy whose ears flopped forward as he tilted his head at her, briefly confused, then reached a final decision and offered his head for scritches. "You're such a good dog, yes," she told him, scratching behind his ears. "Rufus, sit. Rufus, growl," Ted commanded. Rufus looked at Ted, then back at Santa Janet. He sat and whined in concern. "Rufus, come. And you in the Santa suit, get away from that desk." Rufus put his head in Santa Janet's lap. Animals always knew the truth. even when their people were slow to figure things out. I'm not quite done yet, but I've got something for you, Ted. She pulled a basketball from her toy sack and bounced it to him. Rufus's ears twitched as he thought about chasing it, but he decided to stay for more scritches. What? How do you know my name? And I'm serious, you can't be here. I'm sorry about the basketball hoop, I really am. Hoop? When you were 12? Your parents were right. There was no safe place to put it at your house, and I never bring presents that kids can't use. I tried to make it up to you with that nail polish set. His voice fell to a hush. He stared at her. I found it in my room, not under the tree. I'd never told anyone that I wanted that. I was too afraid. But you told us, the Santas, in a letter. I painted my toenails for months, hidden under socks, until I got the courage to tell my parents how I felt. He took a step forward, wonder lighting his face. It's really you. She smiled through her puffy white faux beard. I need your help now, Ted. This company is destroying children's trust and joy, and it's doing it in Santa's name. Of course, Santa. Whatever you're up to, I didn't see you here. He winked. I'll try to keep the other guards away. He returned to patrolling, but left Rufus to sit with her while she went back to work. Santa Nick followed Grant into that company's headquarters and smiled to see the reception area strewn with tinsel and all the posters, presumably more offensive Santa-themed advertising, covered up with wrapping paper. Grant growled at the sight and went to meet his waiting security chief. We've got a couple of them, sir, but we're not sure how many there are. Some of my guards have dropped out of contact, and the intruders keep... A foam dart from the second floor balcony hit him in the shoulder, and he flinched. They're playing games with us. These are your people, aren't they? Grant demanded of Santa Nick. My colleagues, yes, and you won't catch them unless they want to be caught. Well, make them stop. He took a threatening step forward before remembering his very practical business reasons for not doing violence to Santa or a man dressed as Santa. He huffed in frustration. I want them out of here. Let me see if it's time. Santa Nick took out his walkie-talkie. How are we doing, friends? Just finished, Nick, Santa Janet said with satisfaction. Excellent, excellent. All of you, come join us in the main lobby and we can have a little chat with Mr. Lawson. The first few Santas emerged from elevators and stairwells, chatting in a jolly way with security folks who seemed to be making very little effort to secure them. Does anyone around here actually do their damn job? Grant cried. Boss, it's Santa, said one of the staff. What do you expect us to do? Are you even serious right now? There are a bunch of terrorists in costumes. Look, there are 4 of them right there, and that one's a woman. Everyone knows there's only one real Santa, finished Santa Doug Riley, and that he's a white man who visits the whole planet in one night. We're fast, but not that fast, said Santa Nick. We've always worked as a team. There are all sorts of Santas all over the world. We're representatives of the North Pole office. Most of the guards nodded. This made perfect sense to them, which only added to Grant's frustration. Fine, I'll play along with your delusion. What are you trying to do here? Put coal in all our stockings? Send me on a trip with the ghost of Christmas past? The spirits don't really do house calls anymore. Santa Nick turned to greet Santa Janet, who showed him a report on her tablet while scratching one of the security dogs on the head. The data looked perfect. Good work, he murmured to her, and then, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge hurt a lot of people, but his wrongdoing was limited to London, while you've managed to harm millions all over the world. And Scrooge had the potential for change, which I'm afraid I don't see in you. So no, you'll get no coal in your stocking. We have a different gift for you. Whether he was starting to believe or not, for the first time, Grant looked nervous. He glanced over his shoulder at his security team, and their expressions seemed to unnerve him further. They either believed or wanted badly enough to that they wouldn't interfere. First, we have an early Christmas gift. or just plain gift for those who don't observe Christmas, for all of your customers. My colleague here has fixed your software. Fixed? Grant's face was bright red. Santa Janet grinned. Tomorrow morning, your users will wake up to find they have 1,000 jolly points and no history of negatives, except for your staff, who are reset to 0 and will have to work their way back up through good deeds, namely repairing the damage they've helped you cause. You can't. Our contracts. Incidentally, I've rewritten your algorithm too. Going forward, everyone will find it much easier to get points for being jolly than naughty. The security chief spoke in an undertone to Grant, something about backups, and Santa Janet shook her head. I'm afraid not. I took care of the backups too. That's impossible. You've only been here a couple hours. Santa Janet waved her gloved hands in the air. I'm a Santa. We work quickly. We'll talk with your entire staff tomorrow about how to undo the harm they've helped cause, said Santa Nick. You'll send out a message before you leave here, Grant, explaining the situation and asking that they cooperate. I'm not leaving, Grant swallowed. I won't be cowed by your threats. I don't make threats, said Santa Nick, a hard edge to his voice. I give gifts, and here's my gift to you. Santa Pablo set a large sack at Grant's feet. It rustled as Grant warily opened it. He pulled out a handful of papers and looked at Santa Nick, baffled. Those are letters from the people you've hurt. Children mostly, but you'd be surprised at the range of people who ask Santa for help, even after you tried to make the Santa title evoke fear. You're coming back to the North Pole with us, where you're going to answer every single one of these letters. What? It's not my job to, including, I believe, letters from your very own children. You'll have a chance to give them the explanation they deserve. That quieted him at last. Don't look so glum. If you're lucky, you'll be done by Christmas. And then, Santa Nick's eyes twinkled. Well, we'll see if you've learned anything. Dear Santa, I don't know what happened, but our naughty scores are gone, and our jolly scores are really good. We also got a letter from Mr. Lawson, who founded Santa Knows, apologizing for violating people's privacy. It kind of sounded like the sort of apology note I'd write and if an adult made me, but our dads got rid of the Santa cans in our house after that, so I guess it worked. Devin is playing again like a normal kid. She says to tell you that she wants a real pony for Christmas. I think she'd be okay with a toy one, though. Thank you for everything, Katrin and Devin. P.S. Someone sent me a book on online privacy and white hat hacking. If that was you, thank you. I'm signed up for a coding class at school next semester, and I'm really excited. P.P.S. I still don't know if you exist, for the record. I'm not some gullible kid. But if it wasn't Santa who did all this, it was someone Santa-like, and I hope they know they did a good thing.
Oh, that was great. Such a fun story. And Anne was just asking in the chat when the movie's coming out.
I wish. Yeah, if anyone
Me
has those
too.
connections.
Me too. Hollywood, give Joe a call. Oh, it's just such a sweet story. It just, oh, I love it so much. And again, sweet, but not thoughtlessly sweet, thoughtfully sweet, which is so much better. Daniel, we are just the luckiest people.
We are.
We really are. And you know, these two get major jolly points for tonight, both of them.
Absolutely.
And I find myself wanting to be a cause for hope for the elephants all over again. So that was just awesome. And you know, next week is beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but since our readers are Tim Pratt and Heather Shaw, those may be Santa stories that do require content warnings. We'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do recommend checking storyhour2020.com the day of the reading for any announcements, any changes. But you know, storyhour2020.com, it's kind of a fun little site to explore anyway, because you can check the calendar to see who's going to be reading soon. And you can check the recordings to look at almost 5 years worth of Wednesdays of recordings. Hundreds, and links to all of them. So that's a lot of fun to browse to. And, you know, if you prefer to go through Facebook, that's good too. You can go through and actually see the little video tiles. So that's also a fun way to browse. But there's just so much story hour to enjoy. And we have enjoyed this one greatly. Joe, Anne, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it is our honor and our pleasure. And I'd also like to thank SIFWA for the Givers Fund grant that helps us keep things going. And to thank my co-host, Daniel Marcus, without whom literally none of us would be here in this virtual room. This virtual room would not even exist without Daniel Marcus. And I'd also like to thank all of you who are here now, all of you joining at some point in the future, because as long as we all get to enjoy these stories, we're sharing the same story hour. So go for those jolly points, and good night.